If you know anything about me, anything at all, even from just a cursory glance at my channel page, it's probably what my most played and followed game series is. I love Rock Band a lot. A lot. A lot. But going into this review is kind of a risky endeavour because of it. I mean, I was there when Dark Souls 2 came out with its loads of "this game sucks but it's still better than anything else on the market, but don't let me tell you how, just let me tell you how it sucks" reviews. Outlier-esque dedication to something tends to skew your perspective, and playing through RB4 it was very difficult to keep a handle on it. But I'm going to be as pragmatic as possible rather than get hung up on what I think about it as someone who has played more Rock Band 3 than literally any other game I can think of. And in the event I do get hung up on Rock Band 3, I'm going to field some responses from people who like this game, hypothetically, before they're even given to me.
You're already passively revealing your distaste for this game.
Just like that.
Also, this review might be very long and I'm going to be very systematic about it, which is breaking my usual rule for reviews, but I promise everything I bring up has a point and isn't just there to fill time. What's the best way to start this? How about... Now, I ordered the band in a box from Amazon because the release date from EB was being pushed back and back. So in the meantime, I also pre-ordered the digital version and sang all the songs. And after that, and having gone through most on guitar, my impression of the setlist is... I mean, you have a few artists who haven't been in these games at all, and they are major bombshells. I'm still reeling over Elvis being in the game. But for many of the other popular artists, they're either so overdone that Harmonix had to dig for something usable, or they just flat out did not have an idea on what to pick. Guys, we just managed to finally license the Gin Blossoms for our game. Awesome. So, just to make sure, you did get Hey Jealousy, right? Nope. Even better, we got Follow You Down. You're fired.
Licensing is hard. Maybe there was some issue that prevented more popular choices from getting off the ground.
Okay, but that doesn't stop me from feeling underwhelmed anyway. And as for these other bands that very few people would have recognised from the off, I could go either way on most of them. I guess I'm a little sad that more of the Harmonix old guard didn't come back, but really if you're looking at a name the average Joe wouldn't recognise, chances are it's either modern garage rock or overproduced electro indie. And the fact that Rock Band 4 has a lot of music like this goes to show how much the rock landscape has changed in just a few short years. If it's not called Dream Genie, the hardest and most fun songs are from ages ago. On the flip side, at least it doesn't have a bunch of foreign no-namers who might be good acts, but have very little place in a sequel to a blockbuster rhythm game franchise. Also, these music game setlists have never really played a big part in my opinions of these games. A bad setlist can always be fixed with DLC, and the DLC that has been coming out has been pretty good so far. Besides, if you're watching this, you probably made up your own mind on a track list. Why the hell do you even want my take? Compatibility for past instruments on the Xbox One is a damn sight lesser than that on the PS4. Let's just get that out of the way. Having to buy an adapter for past instruments to work? Fine. Not making that adapter work for wired instruments or just letting you plug your wired instruments into the Xbone itself?
It's impressive that Harmonix got as many instruments to work as they did.
In regards to guitars, absolutely. Just about every Guitar Hero controller, except the Explorer, is forwards compatible, and the adapter seems to work really well and syncs up easily and with no latency, which to be honest I fully expected Mad Cats to fuck up on. Drum sets are another matter entirely. Only the Rock Band 2, 3 and Beatles sets are compatible. And I guess the Guitar Hero drum sets, but the configuration between the two types of drum set has always had a gulf about as wide as the drum and bass break in 2112. In any case, the Rock Band 1 drum set, the Ions, and, oh yeah, literally any E-kit ever made, are no longer compatible as they were in RB3. Now, when you have those sorts of limitations, forcing a considerable subset of players to get the newest drum set to be able to play at all, you owe it to them, and to your own reputation, to make that drum set the best it can be. It's not. The build quality is kind of alright, assembly is easy and it's very portable and storable, which is good because I already have a drum set sitting in my room. I am legit impressed at how sturdy the frame is because I remember my oldest RB1 set just wiggling all over. The pads have a good amount of rebound, but the pedal is complete crap. It feels like I'm pressing it through molasses. Even if double kicks weren't broken at launch, how could anyone stand to try it? Oh yeah, that's another thing. Day 1 firmware updates are a bad omen, and the general consensus indicates that the RB4 drum set is riddled with problems. 16th rolls were basically unhittable the day it came out, and I haven't been able to do anything faster like buzz rolls at all. In fact, I strongly doubt the reliability of this drum set to begin with. I swear I should not be missing as much as I am, but I've managed to FC a grand total of 2 songs on this thing, and it's not like completely broken, because I can hit the stupid fast disco bit in birth and reverse no problem, but the rock beat in V-bomb, apparently it is too much for the set to handle, and it just makes me wonder how much of this can actually be fixed by software updates. So I have basically nothing good to say about this drum set. The new guitar, on the other hand, is actually quite spiffy. I have generally hated the Rock Band guitars for having bad buttons, but the ones on here feel solid, and the scale of the instrument is pretty good. The strum bar is as puffy as always though, so I still prefer the Les Paul for that tactile response, but at least it seems like it was an intentional decision to keep it that way. One honest problem I have is with the whammy bar. It doesn't seem like it's going to have a lot of tensile strength, and what I mean by that is, hold on. Alright, so when I'm talking about tensile strength, this is what I'm talking about. Alright, you see this whammy bar? It's like stuck in place, so it doesn't move, unless you want it to. Now, yeah, that's the X-Bone fucking guitar, and this is an old Warriors of Rock guitar I have. It just falls down. So, when playing it, you have to basically have your hand like this all the time, which is just not ideal. And that's the sort of thing that I'm afraid will happen with the Rock Band 4 guitar, because it feels about as loose, honestly. But other than that, the guitar is actually really good. And then there's the microphone. It works. Let's just lump all of these into the one category for my sanity. Guitar, drums, and vocals each have a new feature that applies to most songs, including past DLC, meant to enhance the feeling of musical expression. And I will talk about them in roughly descending order of quality. Freestyle vocals had me intrigued most. Singing a freeform line in the middle of a song is the sort of tactic live performers use all the time to spice things up. But the reality is a little weaker than that. I'm not the most musically literate NB on the planet, but few freestyle lines seem to encompass every note within a song's current chord. Sometimes even singing the literal harmonies of the song will get you nothing. Not to mention that freestyle vocals don't even work in harmonies mode. Also, while I had freestyle vocals on, the pitch arrow tended to fly all over the place as it wanted to grab one of the freestyle lines. So after 2 songs, I turned it off and stopped bothering until after I'd played every song on a disc. I mean, I guess it works, but it's not some liberating force for self-expression. It's just kind of there. Also new to the mix are dynamic drum fills, randomly drawn from a list and put into place of where you'd usually bash out whatever you want to activate overdrive. Now they did have the foresight to create different fills depending on whether a fill ends on an upbeat, which is impressive, but I just didn't feel these at all. They're hard to hear and they don't seem to be tailor-made to fit with the form of whatever song you're playing, so if anything, they distract from rather than heighten the experience.
Hey, they're completely optional. You can go back to the old fills if you want to.
Now that's not really the whole story, is it? This would all be fine as a throwaway if not for one thing. They've completely changed how these things are scored. I guess not how the classic fills work. You can still sit through them without penalty, but if you have static or dynamic fills on, you have to play them. Even though you don't always have to activate, you'll break combo if you miss within the fills. What's more is that dynamic and static fills will actually give you a set amount of points when playing them, and classic fills will not. Introducing weighted scoring mechanisms into arcade gameplay is usually a big no-no because it completely nullifies the illusion of choice. What's more is that static fills, which is just playing the song as per usual, is how you get the most points. So much for musical expression when the objectively best option is, in some respects, the most boring one.
Who says score is the only thing that matters? Why do you care so much anyway?
Because there are leaderboards, and a score ticker, and a threshold that denotes whether you'd get the best rating in an individual song. However much I want or don't want to pay attention to it, Rock Band has always been judging you. Like it or not, scoring is always baked into proceedings, and that is entirely on the head of the developers. So if they've put this much emphasis on arbitrary numbers, they should have made damn sure they were as balanced as possible. And then, there are these. Many a joke has been made about these solos and how ridiculous they seem on paper. This video is fucking funny, by the way. But allow me to clear the air. Yeah, these kind of suck. I mean, it is actually pretty impressive how your freeform noodling is fitted to be in key at all times, and there's a somewhat decent array of effects and variants on offer. Mechanically it can feel decent to just go nuts, but you know that old adage about polishing a turd? It's been years since synths were invented. We have many bands composing megalithic symphonies from their bedrooms with the aid of artificial instruments. But in all that time, I think we should have learned that getting a fake guitar to sound good is impossible. Unless you are either Daft Punk or the Crash Kings, you just shouldn't try. There are so many little intricacies that go into creating just one guitar sound. The fact it sounds so rich is precisely why it has endured all these years, whereas people have been getting away with just synthesizing brass instruments. No matter how well the pitch matches each song, that doesn't stop the tone from sucking complete ass. I mean, it's just so abrasive and fake. I mean, I know I'm not the only one to make this observation, but I'm stunned at how many people say that the solos sound good. Harmonix did their best to actually note track the proper notations for different mechanics of the solo depending on the song, but it still rarely sounds close to the form of the solo that was originally there. I mean, playing through the tour mode, I kept getting these pop-ups after every major show that I'd just been using a different effects pedal to achieve different sounds, but I certainly didn't hear them, and it's not like you can turn them on or off, so I'm pretty sure this is lies. The engine for this is quite strange too. You have to activate overdrive before you go into the solo, or you just can't do it at all. Transitioning from one notation to the next can feel like a crapshoot at points, and anytime you're asked to engage, feedback is an instant combo breaker.
Who says score is the only thing that matters?
Shut up, we've been through this. If Harmonix didn't want anyone to care about score, they wouldn't have had them in all their games since the first Guitar Hero. And to their credit, this happens during Endless Freestyle mode, which is actually a lot of fun. It turns Rock Band 4 into the best comedy game since Portal 2, because you can completely ruin songs, or maybe just make bad songs even worse in some sort of Dada-esque orgy. Honestly, this section's just here to give my experience on calibration, because it's kind of a hot button issue in the rhythm games community. Well, I use hot button and community in massive quotes. It's not like the democratic debate or anything. Mostly I've seen a number of people say they've had issues getting a grasp on it at all. First time I calibrated, it was a little loose, but when I used the strat to auto-calibrate, I pretty much nailed it. Even if I hadn't though, I'd be kind of willing to give Harmonix the benefit of the doubt. And by that I mean check back in a week or so to see if the new Guitar Hero is any better. Aside from that, strum lanes and trill lanes seem to work better. I don't know about throw lanes because I didn't bother to find any yet. The game seems to have trouble saving vocals octaves, making sight reads a pain, but honestly none of this seems neither here nor there. For what it's worth, the game works. I mean, it's a hell of a lot more playable than Rock Band 1 is nowadays. I think my biggest grievance with RB4's playability is with the drums, which might be a hardware issue, but they are pretty unplayable, let's not get it twisted. What's this? A new addition to Rock Band that Harmonix was marketing the hell out of that I like? Perish the Thought. In shows mode, you pick a couple of songs to start off with, then in between rounds you can vote to pick a few random songs from selected categories. This is an awesome idea, randomizing your entire song library but giving you just enough of a grasp on it to keep the mode interesting. Admittedly, in solo play this is kind of a superfluous waste of time. If I'm playing by myself, I'm going to want absolute control over what I play, particularly since scores between quick play and shows mode don't carry over. Now the reason this happens is because your OD and streak carry over from song to song in shows and tour mode, but the reason they originally put this in was because songs were seamless and you could vote for the next song during the instrument's break. But this isn't in the final game because I guess people found it too confusing, and because there are these segmented breaks where voting occurs, there's no consistency to songs and thus no point for your OD to even carry over anymore, especially since it's not like drums can use it at the beginning of the song anyway, so why is score still cordoned off between modes anyway? But I think this will be taken out in the December update. But for multiplayer, I can see this being pretty good. The party shuffle was always good for a lark in the last game, but this mode having more interaction within that shuffle feature makes it seem far more concrete while keeping that element of surprise. Granted, you probably have to have a lot of DLC to get the most out of this, but thankfully I do. But because I have a lot of DLC, there's also one major part of the game that suffers: the quick play song selection screen. So you remember those filters and sorting options and hotkeys that made sorting through the long song list in RB3 bearable? They're mostly gone now. There's been no attempt made to accommodate large lists of DLC, and for some reason I cannot even fathom trying to quickly sort by artist will bring up each artist's name in the shortcuts rather than just the letters. Why is this necessary? It basically means the only efficient method of finding songs is to use a literal virtual keyboard. It's bad enough using it on a regular controller. On the guitar and drum set, it's a nightmare! And it's basically an admission on Harmonix's part that they couldn't think of anything more efficient.
It's not Harmonix's fault you have so much DLC. Sorry, the quick play menu doesn't cater exclusively to you.
I don't think asking for being able to quickly find a song I want without resorting to typing it in is unfair. And excuse me, I thought one of the biggest draws of Rock Band 4 was its backwards compatibility. Being able to play old songs with new features, infusing more value into old content, that's every kid's dream, right? But this selection screen alone makes me not want to bother. It's such a barrier for entry, I'd rather try to learn the Mustang again. And then there's tour mode. It's kind of like Rock Band 2's tour mode, but with multiple choices on where you go and what you play. So that makes it the best career mode yet, right? Well, not exactly. It's not terrible, but I would struggle to call it good. Because the game still pushes you into playing a lot of disc songs no matter what storyline you pick, it still ends up feeling very repetitive, especially the absolute final show. There's very little meaning behind what you play, partially because your scores aren't saved between modes again, partially because the storylines are pretty hollow and when all's said and done it doesn't really matter what you pick, and partially because of there being arbitrary star cutoffs before the next tour, so even if you perfect every song thrown your way, you'll still have to do completely unrelated gigs just to continue the story. In fact, can I throw out this opinion that I think even the most hardcore fanboy will fight me on? I don't think this mode has ever been good. It's always presented gigs as these sort of itemized quests, and that just reeks of the Skinner box, and it takes the magic out of playing the songs in a pretty significant way, and it just goes on and on and on and on.
It doesn't end! It doesn't fucking end!
I mean, say what you want about Rock Band 3 and its stupid spade challenges, at least you could clear it in around 4 hours, and you could in fact completely circumvent disc songs if you wanted. But I don't know why I bothered to get as far as the endless setlist in Rock Band 2. Never fucking again. This is an extremely mixed bag. So many other people are completely writing this game's production values off, but I have more than a few nice things to say about it. The lighting, for example, is probably the best in the series. It's got a very nice glow and mood to it, and the way it reflects off the characters on stage is no small feat. And Harmonix clearly knew this, because the custom authored venues for the disc songs take great advantage of this, and they're queued up very well, and combined with the crowd sing-alongs, they actually enhance the atmosphere a lot. Each song properly attuned with these two features has a lot more presence and makes them feel much more like experiences rather than just here's a chart with a rough approximation of what's played, get to it. Harmonix even went so far as to add crowd vocals for some songs in the back catalogue. Once again, adding that sort of retroactive value to old content is awesome, but any props I can give to the lighting I have to take back in regards to just about everything else. Most post-processing effects are simply gone. Photo negative, gone. Trails effects, gone. Any sort of choppy effect, gone. These used to be just as big in establishing mood as the lighting, and as such a lot of the songs feel flaccid without them. I was hoping All Over You would have some trails effect active during the bridge before the flames are going off, but nope. And when I say they're not in the game, I mean they're not even in the engine, which means they won't even show up in your old DLC, which is kind of taking value away from past songs. It's also missing a lot of directed cuts, which is, you know those special animations where the singer might do a little flourish, or have a big wind up in a particularly long note, or when the camera would focus on the fretboard or bass drum? There are a lot of those missing, which means the only special animation you'll see again and again will be the singer pointing at the camera. This actually makes watching these performances very banal, which I guess is why performance mode isn't in the game, snarf snarf. There's also the general animations for the rest of the band, which, I gotta be honest, it's kind of a train wreck. In regards to drums, every single hit has this ridiculous fucking wind up, which means it looks like the drummer is just moving their arms through mud every time, and they glitch up on any sort of double stroke. It just looks wrong and I just don't like it at all. And as for the guitarist, well, let me put it like this.
I think I should get off her first.
Why do you care so much about how the game looks, especially after complaining so much about how much the gameplay matters?
It's kind of true that your mileage may vary on how much this bugs you, and if you don't care, then don't let my bitching infect you. But to me, the presentation of this series, and how dynamic it has been up to this point, has always made it much more special. And I personally think that if you're gonna make some aspects look good, you should make all of it look good. And I'm not going to sit here with rose-tinted glasses and tell you the last 2 games were spring chicken down to a T or anything, but they're clearly much more fully realised than this. Yeah, it's kind of a bad omen when I have to dedicate an entire section to glitches. But you know what else is a bad omen? A community-driven bug tracker for a full-price retail game. The most I can say in its favour is that there are no ramp glitches in this one, but there is plenty of...
That's an X-Bone issue, not a Rock Band issue.
True, but it does mean the amount of lockups I've had between games kind of evens out. But that's not what I want to highlight. Take a look at this. Did you see that? The notes disappeared for a split second. That hasn't happened since Warriors of Rod. There are also times where the frame rate noticeably stutters, which for a music game is absolutely criminal. Some characters also fail to load until right before the song starts, or the camera will clip through them. Nothing new, but it's funny to point and laugh at. I don't think I've mentioned in the review yet, but I actually really appreciate the pains Harmonix went to get all the old DLC up and running as soon as the game launched. It's actually no small feat, and I remember when Rocksmith completely botched it and I was locked out of my past DLC for weeks. Some of the legacy DLC doesn't quite work yet, but at least it's all the stuff I expected to not work. You don't move more than 1700 pieces of content and get them all right on the first day. But something that's absolutely shameful is that the pre-order and launch DLC was completely broken and only just ironed out. If the words "Jane" by Jefferson Starship ready to start are burned into your retinas, you probably know what I'm talking about. Something else that also really caught me off guard is that some songs will have several bars of their solos repeat 2 or 3 times. At first I thought this was intentional, to make solos longer and give everyone using freestyle more room to work with, but I asked the official Twitter account if this was intentional and they just told me to submit a bug report, so maybe not. Alright, I think I've pretty thoroughly covered what's in the game, now let's cover what's not.
Hey, you shouldn't get so hung up on what's not in the game. You should just focus on what's in the game. I think what's in there is pretty sweet.
Sorry, but Rock Band 4 does not exist in a vacuum. As both a sequel to a long-running franchise which is, in its own right, selling itself on its own path, and a game released in the year of our Lord 2015, it will therefore have standards to live up to, and compared against both past games in the series and other games being released right now, Rock Band 4 rings pretty hollow. Arguably the biggest omission is, of course, the keyboard. This was an absolutely brilliant addition to the third game. Not only did it heighten the connection and immersion of the entire experience, it was also arguably the most flexible instrument of the entire franchise, and it just made so many more things seem possible. Billy Joel, Elton John, Queen, The Doors, yes, so many legendary acts defined by piano or keyboard could now see their absolute fullest potential realised. Plus, with the growing bent of electronic influences in modern rock, it managed to make even the most mundane pieces of new DLC feel much more whole. It kinda caused a gulf in how so many songs released before the keyboard couldn't just have their parts patched in, but other than that it was such a wonderful addition, and now it's just gone. Unceremoniously.
Very few people play the keyboard, so they had to stick to the core lineup.
I'm definitely aware that Harmonix are kind of taking a risk as is rebooting the franchise, and some sacrifices had to be made, and I'm not blind as to why Keys was one of them. That said, if there was a divide between pre-RB3 and post-RB3 DLC before, it's only going to look more evident now that the ability to play Keys is just gone. Pretty Hate Machine, my favourite album ever, and subsequently one of my favourite packs ever, is basically worthless now. Orbit to the Billy Joel catalogue is neutered. That entire John Lennon album shouldn't even be purchasable now. And because Harmonix has become quite bad at PSAs, here's one free of charge. CV songs, do not buy them in Rock Band 4. Because they only had keys and bass, not guitar, and because again there's been no effort made to accommodate their inclusion in Rock Band 4, they are of objectively lesser value in the most recent hippest addition to the Rock Band franchise. Buy them in the previous game if you must. On top of that, it basically ensures that any new songs that come out are going to be full of what could have beens. Metropolis, what should have been one of the most exciting songs on the disc, is completely boring past the 6-minute mark because you can't play any of the crazy keyboard stuff. For Horns and Albert, nope. The classical piano in Jane, turned way down in the mix to try and get you to forget, I assume. With how increasingly electronic the modern music landscape is, and how much RB4 relies on modern music, I would have hoped it would have clutched onto keys tighter than ever before, because even if it wasn't used all that often, in some respects it's the most relevant instrument in the entire damn series. I guess I should mention how Pro Guitar is also gone, but honestly, good fucking riddance. The Mustang was a piece of shit, and now we have Rocksmith, whose interface doesn't have to be compromised to account for the general way people play play the game, it is entirely worthless. Character creation. Man, what happened? You would think that if any facet of this series would be expanded upon with new tech, it'd be the most immediately expressive part of the game. I mean, that's what all these new features are about, right? Immersion and expression? Well, too bad. It's back to the old Rock Band style, with around 6 faces per sex and no sliders. But it gets worse, because you don't even get to control height and weight this time, and there are like 20 clothing options, without even the option to separate pants and shoes. And even though I tried to choose no facial hair, every male character in this game has this ridiculous looking stubble. Rock Band 3 was already kind of sketchy in how few normal items it had, but I guess we should count our blessings because things can always get worse. For example, there's no practice mode. No practice mode. Alright, we are straight up regressing back to the birth of this brand of rhythm games, i.e. literally 10 years ago! It's inconceivable to think that the hot new rhythm action game wouldn't let you practice songs a section at a time, particularly when one of the most hyped up songs on here is the one with possibly the most distinct bass solo of all time, which is practice mode written all over it. This is the game where all past DLC has harmonies added. That's great, that's brilliant, but it makes practice mode and its guide pitch more important than ever before.
It'll be in the December update for sure.
I refuse to bend on this. Why wasn't it in the game to start with? Why was it ever on the cutting room floor? If the game's goal was to convince us it was an evolution of the series, it failed when it removed a feature that was in every Guitar Hero bar the first one, and in every Rock Band bar none. I'm getting too caught up in my fanboy tendencies, I think. So let's switch up to something more relevant to general interests, and far less defendable. Online multiplayer. You know, the internet age is wonderful in a lot of ways. While previously we had only people in the vicinity to socialise with, the internet, by removing the distance barrier, has made finding friends with relevant interests so much easier. Whilst in primary school I had to hope to find someone who likes video games as much as me, nowadays I don't have to hope. I don't have to look around, I can just do it. That's what made online play so great in Rock Band as opposed to local play. And yes, I have hosted a few RB parties in my time. I don't have to look around for people who want to play Rock Band, organise a time and place, maybe even have to hire a venue and equipment and hope drunk people don't break any of my controllers. With online, I didn't have to worry about any of that. And to not having to worry about any of that, I found far more meaningful companionship because our interests have obviously had much greater alignment. All personal biases aside, Rock Band 4 brands itself as a multiplayer game. But what do you think the chances are that someone who owns all but 50 of the DLC songs is going to find at least 3 other people in the area who are as into it as me? If Harmonix truly didn't believe that side-by-side couch gaming was dead, they would have released this game for the Wii U. And come on, it's 2015. The Last of Us has multiplayer, and that game is defined by its story more than anything else. This is a game defined by its multiplayer more than anything, and for a lot of people, it's just not going to have it.
Servers are expensive, you know.
Yes, they are. So is Rock Band 4. You know what isn't so expensive anymore and has online multiplayer? Rock Band 3. Oh, and it gives you the ability to make your own set lists. It has a far more varied selection of songs thanks to the Rock Band network, the inclusion of which in RB4 Harmonix keeps going back and forth on. It lets you set up your own band outside of the career mode. It lets you sit back and literally just watch the show. It has a more persistent unlock system. It has overall leaderboards instead of just per song. It has fucking post-song stats. Yeah, I cannot even pretend on this anymore. Every time I've booted up RB4, it has just felt so hollow and mediocre in comparison to its forebearers. And it's the kind of thing that usually makes me ask, why can't we go back to the way things were? And then I say to myself, oh wait a minute, I can. And I certainly don't think Rock Band 3 is some implaceable masterpiece that can never be topped. But seriously, I cannot fathom why you would get Rock Band 4 over Rock Band 3. It has freestyle solos. Woo. It has harmonies for everything, which is an honest selling point, but also being honest, with enough work you can get them running in Rock Band 3 as well. The only group I can recommend this to is to those people who have the old instruments and lots of old DLC, but not their old consoles. To them I say, get the adapter bundle and go nuts. For everyone else without stupidly cyclical console ownership, just get Rock Band 3. It has way more stuff, which is kind of important for a series as systematic as this.
You're not being fair. You should wait until the December update before writing this game off.
No. This game wasn't delayed until December. Harmonix sure as shit didn't want us to put off buying it until December. If I can buy it now and play it now, I'm damn well going to review it now. If Harmonix wanted to put this game out early to compete with Guitar Hero Live, then I say, let the games begin